good to see everybody. It is always great to be here. I am very excited to be able to talk to you all today. I'm excited to be able to bring a holiday-themed message. I'll go ahead and say this. I picked this image here. It was really hard to pick an image for me to best kind of deliver this message to y'all because I've kind of got a couple of things that I was thinking about. So as I was reading over this text and as I was doing a lot of studying and thinking, really what led me towards this is one of my favorite times of year. And one of the big reasons that I love this holiday time is I love Christmas movies. All right, now I recently found out this is not something that everybody shares in. Right? There's some people who they don't really like holiday movies. All right, can I get some kind of show of hands as to what people like holiday movies? Okay, all right, we got a pretty good number. Okay, perfect. This is going to translate then. Awesome. If nobody raised their hands, I was going to be lost. I'm going to be like, great, this is not going to make any sense to me. Okay, we've got lots of people who really like holiday movies, okay? Some of y'all probably like the Hallmark movies, right? Where it's all kind of the same thing. It's just a little bit different. Hopefully I didn't trigger anybody with that, all right? They've never been my thing, but I get it. But one of the things that I really like about holiday movies is even though they all kind of have the same kind of arc to them. It's about somebody who's, kind of grumpy, they're kind of upset, or they've had something bad happen in their life, right? I think we can all agree with those three emotions. We've all had those at some point. But through some kind of struggle, they encounter some person who helps them to believe in Christmas magic, right? And once you believe in the magic of Christmas, once that kind of light goes off in their head, all of a sudden things turn around for them. And they end up in this happy ending, right? Because they believe, okay? If you just believe in this Christmas magic, things are going to turn out okay. Things are going to be all right for you. And as I began to think about this idea of belief, right? We're all about believing in the Christmas spirit, believing in this Christmas magic almost, right? I started to think about kind of our belief and the things that we hold to be really important to us, the things that we choose to believe in, the things that we choose to buy into. And as I was thinking about that, I was really led towards this story here in Mark. So I'm going to start reading in verse 14 of Mark 9. Before we get into this story, though, of course, we kind of got to look at the stuff that's happening around it. And one of the things we see right before this story we're going to get into in verse 14 of chapter 9 is Jesus has been transfigured on the top of this mountain. So he and a couple of his very close disciples have gone onto the top of this mountain, and Jesus has been transfigured and changed before them. All right, Moses and Elijah are there. Peter gives one of the most influential statements in all of the Bible. He says, "It is good for us to be here." Right? Peter always delivering the most insightful kind of comments. All right, notes that it's good for them to be there at the Transfiguration. So this Transfiguration has happened. They've seen Jesus in this totally different way. He's been cemented as the Son of God, as the Savior. All right, and then we get into verse 14. When they came to the other disciples, Jesus and those who had been on the mountain with him, when they came to the other disciples, they saw a large crowd around them and teachers of the law arguing with them. As soon as all the people saw Jesus, they were overwhelmed with wonder and ran to greet him. "What are you arguing with them about?" he asked. A man of the crowd answered, "Teacher, I brought you my son, who is possessed by a spirit that has robbed him of speech. Whenever it seizes him, it throws him to the ground. He foams at the mouth, gnashes his teeth, and becomes rigid. I asked your disciples to drive out the spirit, but they could not." So right after this great influential moment that Jesus has had with a number of his disciples, he comes to the other disciples, and they're in a little bit of a pickle. Right? So somebody has come forward and asked them to try to heal his son. His son's got these kind of fits, these kind of seizures almost, that are brought on by this demon. And this is what he's in the middle of dealing with. So he brings it to them, and they're unable to cast this out. So when Jesus first comes upon them, they are arguing with these teachers of the law. Right? They're arguing with Pharisees, scribes. They're arguing with the people of the Jewish establishment here. And so I would kind of imagine the reason they're arguing is I think these teachers saw what the disciples were trying to do, and it was unsuccessful then. So it was a great point. Aha, all right, we got you. You tried to drive out this spirit, and it didn't work, so let's kind of argue and bicker over that. All right, so this is where Jesus steps in. They're arguing. There's a crowd that's been attracted to this argument or to this failed miracle, whatever's going on. Either way, quite a scene is going on. And this man he just has absolutely no idea what to do next. Verse 19, "You unbelieving generation," Jesus replied, "how long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring the boy to me." So they brought him. And when the spirit saw Jesus, it immediately threw the boy into a convulsion. He fell to the ground and rolled around, foaming at the mouth. Now here in this text, I would see what we kind of see as our first sign of real belief, right? Maybe, is that we see this spirit comes into contact, this evil spirit comes into contact with Jesus, and it immediately reacts to that, right? It immediately starts to throw this boy into a convulsion and immediately starts to act up. All right, so while there's been some failure of belief on possibly these teachers of the law and maybe even the disciples, the Spirit seems to believe in who Jesus is and his power. That's why it starts to convulse, cause this boy to have this fit here. Then in verse 21, Jesus asked the boy's father, "How long has he been like this?" "From childhood," he answered. "It has often thrown him into fire or water to kill him. But if you can do anything, take pity on us and help us." "If you can," said Jesus, "everything is possible for the one who believes." Immediately the boy's father exclaimed, "I do believe. Help my unbelief." It's this one verse that's really, really kind of troublesome to me and really kind of confuses me. He says, "I do believe. Help my unbelief." It's kind of confusing because at the same time he's saying, "I do believe, but help me because I don't believe." I mean, this man is in no doubt in a very, very difficult situation, right? His son is having this horrible health condition, is having this really rough issue that he can't seem to fix. He doesn't know what to do. He's approaching Jesus, he's approaching the disciples because he's run out of answers. So because he's run out of answers, he's just on a wish and a prayer at this point. Okay? So when he says, "I do believe, help me overcome my belief," I wonder if what he's struggling with is unbelief or if he's just desperate. "Jesus, I am desperate for something. Right? I obviously don't have enough faith. I don't have enough belief because of what I've said, but help me to believe. Jesus, do this thing for me, and then I will believe. Help overcome my unbelief by helping me out of this situation. Fix things for me, and then I'll believe." So he utters this line. Jesus saw that a crowd was running to the scene. He rebuked the impure spirit. "You deaf and mute spirit," he said, "I command you, come out of him and never enter him again." The spirit shrieked, convulsed him violently, and came out. The boy looked so much like a corpse that many said, "He's dead." But Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he stood up. After Jesus had gone indoors, his disciples asked him privately, "Why couldn't we drive it out?" He replied, "This kind can only come out by prayer." Some manuscripts will say prayer and fasting. If I can be really honest with y'all, when I read this story, when I really look at it, I have a whole lot of questions. And there's a lot of things that are really curious about this story to me. It's very interesting that this man says he believes, "Help my unbelief," so he seems to be struggling with believing who Christ is. "If you can, help me." Jesus, I don't even know if you can do this, but if you can, would you please help me out here? Even after Jesus' response to this man, he still chooses to heal his son. He still chooses to heal him, and he chooses to, I guess he believes at that point. There's not really much more said about him. The disciples are unable to drive out this spirit. And Jesus doesn't when they ask him why they weren't able to cast this spirit out, he doesn't condemn them. He doesn't say, well, you didn't have enough faith. You didn't believe. You didn't do what you were supposed to do. He simply says, this kind can only come out by prayer. It's very curious to me. It's very interesting. But as we kind of look back at this story, and as I think we try to apply it to ourselves, I really want us to ask ourselves, how much is my belief worth? I wonder if the disciples thought that they believed enough. Now, this wasn't the first time that the disciples had cast out spirits. Earlier, they're given the ability by Jesus to cast out spirits, to do miracles, and to complete these things. So at one point, the disciples could do this kind of thing. But now, they're rendered unable to do that. All right? The teachers probably didn't believe, right? They start to argue with the disciples, possibly on how they were able to cast out impure spirits or how they weren't able to do that. They don't seem to believe either. This man is kind of caught in the middle and has seen a miracle go badly. It's created kind of a spectacle. This crowd has been brought into this. And I think they're all struggling to believe in what Christ is trying to share, and what Christ's message is, and who Christ is. They're all caught in this state of unbelief. They all need a little, I won't say Christmas magic, but I'll say they need some Jesus spirit, right? They need some Holy Spirit. They need to have some belief in who Jesus is. And this is why in 19 he calls them an unbelieving generation. You unbelieving generation, how long shall I stay with you? How long shall I put up with you? Does anybody else feel like that today? All right, we'll do another show of hands. How many people feel like we're in an unbelieving generation? All right, okay. I'm with y'all on that. Okay. Again, we're all on the same page. That makes it easier. We're in a generation that wants to believe. Let's see, it's really just easy to believe whatever I want to believe, right? Okay, that's where we came up with this phrase, my truth, right? Hey, this is my truth. I believe this for me. This is my belief. Nobody can touch my belief. I believe in myself. I believe in science. I believe in, whoever this person is that I put a lot of importance in. So our belief becomes focused on something else other than God. It becomes a focus on whatever I can do for me, or whatever everything around me looks like. I want to believe in what my eyes can see. I don't know who Jesus is. I don't know who God is. I can't really see him. I can't reach out and touch him, so I don't think I believe in him. It's a belief that suits our situation, right? Sometimes our beliefs shift because of that. I mean, this father earlier is put in disbelief, is put in unbelief because the disciples aren't able to drive out the spirit. And now Jesus is saying, well, if you believe, I can help you. And he immediately claims that he does believe. Maybe that's how our beliefs shift. Maybe our belief shifts based on what we need in that one moment. Again, this is a very interesting story about people who can't seem to believe, people who can't seem to trust in what they can't fully comprehend and what they can't fully understand. But what's really important about belief, right? Why is belief the center of so many Hallmark Christmas movies? Why is it the center of, The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, right? Why is there this belief in Christmas that changes everything? Well, I think it's because we all believe that, I've used the word itself. It's hard to say it without using that word, but whatever our belief is, that then translates into action. That then powers who we are and what we choose to do with ourselves. If I don't believe in something, I can't act on it. And that's partly what Jesus is saying to him here. If you can, said Jesus, everything is possible for the one who believes. You see, Jesus is not unable to do this miracle if this man doesn't believe, but what he's saying is he's asking for belief on the part of the Father in order for Jesus to do the miracle. Is that Jesus wants a partnering up between himself and this Father. You believe in me, and I will do this. I will impart help. I want us to look at a couple of statistics for a minute. Now, I know statistics are boring, and I would agree that statistics are boring. But I came across some really interesting ones that I think kind of help us to understand how this belief really shapes what we do regularly and how this belief then becomes very important. So Pew Research, this huge research group, did some very interesting studies on people based on their church attendance. All right, so they had three main categories: people who go to church once a week, people who go to church a few times a year, and people who would say they seldom or never go to church. All right, maybe, once a year. Okay, whatever. And so they found that people who go to church at least once a week, 87% of them are absolutely certain about their belief in God. They're absolutely certain in who God is and that they believe that God is present and that God is who he says he is. Out of those who go only a few times a year, 62% are absolutely certain about their belief in God. And of those who would say they seldom or never go to church, 36% are absolutely certain in their belief in God. Now, that first statistic, that 87% of people who are in a church building once a week are absolutely certain in their belief in God, that kind of makes sense, right? But does it make sense that people who are almost never in a church, who are never a part of a church, that 1/3 of them would be absolutely certain in their belief in God? Maybe they think that belief is enough. Jesus, I believe enough, right? I believe enough. That could also be a lot of this man's response here. I do believe. I believe enough, but just help me believe a little bit more, Jesus. Help me believe more. Our belief in what's going on in this moment that we commune with Christ, in this moment that we remember the suffering that he had on the cross, our belief in this moment and what this moment is, if we put everything we have into that belief, how is that going to affect us this week? If Jesus was willing to die, if Jesus was willing to live on this earth, to deal with our unbelief, can I believe in that enough to make any kind of change? Can I be willing to put myself wholeheartedly into that belief, knowing that what Jesus has done has given my life purpose? I want us to focus on that belief now.